The most heartbreaking moment came when her husband called his first wife and said something that shattered Sumayat's confidence completely. Turns out the second wife is useless too. What's the point of providing for someone who's no good? And it didn't stop there. He said other hurtful things that made her feel even smaller. Hi there, and welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into another gripping real-life story, this time from Tongiai Township, Myanmar. It's the tale of a family where the head of the household was consumed by an obsession, having a son to carry on the family name. But as with any obsession, sacrifices were made, and emotions ran high. Over time, what began as a personal struggle spiraled into a case that ultimately ended up in court. So, what's the full story behind this? Let's get into it and uncover the details. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this story with your friends. Now, let's get into it. This is the story of a man named Zaw Min, born in 1969 in the town of Ayutthaya, Myanmar. He worked as a civil servant in the transportation department and was known for being friendly, disciplined, and well-liked by his peers. In 1996, he married Shusin, a woman who had been helping with her family's K-park and fishing business since she was a teenager. The couple quickly became well known in their community, mingling with neighbors and building a good reputation. As the only child in his family, Zaw Min felt immense pressure to carry on the family name. He had big dreams of raising a large family. He wanted his children to go to university, have grandchildren, and most importantly, he hoped for 3 sons to continue the lineage. However, life had other plans. By their 4th year of marriage, there was still no sign of Shusin conceiving. While they tried to stay positive and support each other, the disappointment was hard to ignore. On the advice of friends and family, they turned to both modern and traditional medicine. Finally, in March 2001, their prayers were answered when their daughter, Maya Thazin, was born. While Zaw Min had hoped for a son, he adored his little girl and held on to the hope that their next child would be a boy. But the years passed, and there were no more pregnancies. When Maya Thazin turned 7, Zaw Min encouraged Shusin to try the treatments again. They spent 2 years following the therapy, but it was all in vain. Instead of conceiving, Shusin developed a serious uterine condition that left her health in jeopardy. In 2014, Zaw Min was transferred to Tongiai City for work. The move separated him from his family temporarily. While his wife and daughter initially followed him to Tongiai, it didn't feel right for Shusin. She missed the comfort of Ayutthaya, her community, and her work in the K-park and fishing business. After 3 months, she decided to move back with Maya Thazin, leaving Zaw Min to live alone in Tongiai. Unfortunately, Shusin's health continued to decline. She occasionally visited Tongiai for medical treatment, and in September 2015, doctors delivered a heartbreaking diagnosis. Her condition was life-threatening, and the only option was to remove her uterus. The news crushed both of them, as it meant the end of Zaw Min's dream of having a son. However, he prioritized his wife's life over his own hopes and dreams. They agreed to the surgery, and after her recovery, Shusin returned to Ayutthaya while Zaw Min stayed in Tongiai for work. Let's fast forward a bit. By June 2016, after finishing junior high, Zaw Min and his wife decided that their daughter Maya Thazin would continue her senior high school education in Tongiai. They enrolled her in an international school, as the facilities in Ayutthaya were considered lacking. Although Maya Thazin was reluctant to leave her mother, she eventually agreed and moved in with her father and a housekeeper. Later that year, Zaw Min dropped a bombshell. He wanted to remarry so he could try for a son. He called Shusin and told her about Sumayat, a 26-year-old temporary worker in his office whom he had grown close to. For Shusin, this was a tough pill to swallow. She had known for years how badly her husband wanted a son, but hearing it out loud was still heartbreaking. Reluctantly, she agreed to the marriage under one condition: they would not get divorced. It was a complicated and emotional process, especially when Maya Thazin refused to accept the situation and even ran away from home. But with time and a lot of explaining, things settled down. On March 14, 2017, The civil registry officially recognized the marriage. At the time, Zor Min was 48, and Sumayat was 26. Surprisingly, Maya Thazin grew close to her stepmother. In fact, Sumayat seemed to genuinely care for her stepdaughter. She often spent time with her, taking her to school, buying her clothes, throwing birthday surprises, and helping her navigate the hormonal ups and downs of being a teenager. Maya Thazin would frequently call her mother in Ayethayar and talk about how kind her stepmother was. Shisin appreciated that, and the two women even met a few times and supported one another. For Sumayat, it felt like a personal accomplishment, not just being Zor Min's wife but also becoming a second mother to Maya Thazin. But beneath the surface, cracks in the marriage began to show. Just months after the wedding, Sumayat felt a growing emptiness. The relationship lacked warmth or romance. All Zor Min seemed to care about was when she would get pregnant and give him the son he had always dreamed of. Sumayat started to wonder, was this marriage based on love, or was she just there to fulfill his obsession with having a boy? Knowing how deeply rooted his desire was, she tried to stay understanding. If I give him a son, she thought, he'll become more loving. And besides, the financial security was nice. But as the years passed, things didn't improve. By 2020, 2 years into their marriage, Sumayat still hadn't conceived. Zor Min became colder, more distant, and less considerate with his words. Then the pandemic hit. With schools closed, Maya Thazin, now a high school graduate, returned to her biological mother's home while waiting to start university. Suddenly, the house felt empty, and Sumayat found herself lonely and overlooked. The most heartbreaking moment came when her husband called his first wife and said, "Turns out the second wife is useless too. What's the point of providing for someone who's no good?" He didn't stop there, throwing out more hurtful words that crushed Sumayat. Feeling lonely and unappreciated, she turned to social media to pass the time. At first, it was just for fun. Sumayat wasn't looking for anything serious. After all, she was still married. She just wanted someone to chat with, someone who could listen to her struggles. For a bit of excitement, she used pictures of a much prettier woman as her profile photo. That's how she met Danzor, a 36-year-old man from Xuanyang who claimed to be a widower. They hit it off immediately and eventually exchanged numbers. At first, Sumayat gave him a fake number, but when he couldn't reach her, he messaged her again on social media. Feeling guilty, she finally gave him her real number. Over time, their conversations grew deeper. Sumayat confessed that she was married, but her relationship was falling apart. She asked Danzor not to call or video chat, fearing her husband might find out. "Let's just stick to texting on WhatsApp," she told him. Danzor didn't seem to mind. He kept sending her sweet messages, romantic poems, and even photos of himself at work or enjoying meals, all to make her smile. His attention and kindness started to fill the void in Sumayat's life, and she found herself falling for him. Still, she hadn't told him the truth about the fake photos on her social media profile. She hinted at it a few times, saying, "I'm not as beautiful as my photos. I edited them." But every time Danzor would reply, "It's okay. I'll accept you as you are." Those words gave her the courage to keep talking to him. She even started wondering if he might be her true soulmate, someone who could help her leave her cold, heartless husband, Zor Min. Then came the day Danzor insisted on meeting her in person. Despite her initial hesitation, Sumayat agreed, thinking she'd finally come clean when they met. On April 10, 2020, Danzor arrived at the Tongyai City bus station at 3 p.m. Sumayat didn't pick him up, saying she was at work. He checked into a modest hotel and arranged to meet her in the lobby at 8 p.m. But Sumayat was late. She struggled to come up with an excuse to leave the house, eventually telling her husband she was visiting a friend in the hospital. She didn't make it to the hotel until 10 p.m. When they finally met in the lobby, Danzor was taken aback. At first, he laughed, but his laughter quickly turned bitter. Sumayat suggested they move to his room to talk privately, as the lobby was too crowded. Once inside room 504, things escalated. Danzor was furious, feeling betrayed and lied to. Sumayat tried to explain, insisting that the photos she used were hers, just heavily edited. She apologized profusely, but her words couldn't calm him down. His anger and disappointment filled the room. Danzor admitted he already suspected the photos weren't really of Sumayat. He noticed major differences, especially in her appearance. The chest size gave it away, he said bluntly, demanding she stop lying. Feeling cornered, Sumayat finally confessed that the photos weren't hers. She explained that she had used them because she needed someone to talk to about her problems, but was afraid her husband might discover her social media account if it included her real photo. But Danzor wasn't having it. He felt betrayed. He had sacrificed so much to travel to Tongyai, leaving behind the people he cared about, all for a woman who wasn't what she claimed to be. He had come determined to meet the woman from the photos, start a life with her, and marry her. Instead, his hopes were crushed. Furious, he demanded that Sumayat reimburse him for his bus and hotel expenses, insisting he'd leave for Shenyang the next morning and never speak to her again. But when Sumayat refused, saying she didn't have the money, the argument escalated. Their voices grew louder, and then things turned violent. In a fit of rage, Danzor grabbed a 40 centimeters iron statue from the table and struck Sumayat. Panicked by what he had done, he fled the scene. Later that night, around 11 p.m., a hotel cleaning staff found Sumayat's lifeless body in room 504. She had passed away at just 29 years old. The investigation moved quickly. With Danzor's identity still recorded at the hotel reception and clear surveillance footage showing him walking into the room with Sumayat, police wasted no time tracking him down. He was found hiding in a bus terminal parking lot at 3 a.m. At first, Danzor denied knowing Sumayat. There was no visible connection between them. Chat histories had been deleted, and the fake photos didn't directly link her to him. But the fake photos became his undoing. Faced with mounting evidence and the likelihood of a severe sentence, Danzor eventually opened up through his lawyer. He described his heartbreak and disappointment over Sumayat's deception. He revealed that over their 7-month online relationship, Sumayat always avoided video calls, claiming she didn't want her husband to catch her. He admitted he had built a fantasy around her, believing she was the woman of his dreams. In his confession, Danzor said he had left his girlfriend in Shenyang, abandoned his only child, sold 2 motorbikes, and even pawned his mother's land just to afford the trip to Tongyai. He had hoped to save enough money to build a life with Sumayat, find work in the city, and eventually buy a house for their future together. But none of it was real. It didn't stop there. To gather enough money for his trip and future plans, Danzor had borrowed from loan sharks, using his mother as a guarantor for all his debts. But when he finally met the real Sumayat, everything fell apart. The woman he had imagined starting a life with turned out to be nothing like he expected. His main goal was to meet her, win her over, and build a relationship. Instead, the reality was a bitter disappointment. When Sumayat refused to compensate him for his travel expenses in the hotel room, their heated argument escalated into the tragic incident that followed. Afterward, Sumayat's parents were furious with Zormin, blaming him for neglecting his wife. "Didn't you see how much she was suffering because of you?" they asked. They'd heard countless complaints from their daughter about her struggles to conceive and how Zormin's attitude made her feel like she was disposable. "Is that all marriage is to you?" But Zormin didn't back down. He argued that his marriage to Sumayat was solely to have children. "I still love my first wife in Ayutthaya," he declared unapologetically. He also accused Sumayat of being deceitful, saying she often lied and made up excuses to leave the house. In his view, the situation was inevitable. Meanwhile, Shusin and Maya Thazan were heartbroken over what happened to Sumayat. They blamed Zormin for everything, but he stubbornly insisted he was in the right. On August 15, 2020, the Tongyai City High Court reached its decision. The judge and jury found 37-year-old Danzor guilty of taking Sumayat's life and sentenced him to 25 years in prison. He would be eligible for bail after serving at least 15 years. As for Zormin, tragedy struck just a few months later. In November 2020, while on official duty with his colleagues, he was involved in a fatal accident. While others survived, Zormin lost his life, bringing an unexpected and somber end to his story. What lessons can we take from this story?